Hey guys, nice to meet you all. So yeah, my name is Greg. I'm a cloud solutions architect at Microsoft, focused on the data and AI side of Azure. So things like Cosmos, SQL, Synapse, Purview, Data Factory, all those kind of data technology and stuff like that. So today we're talking about Purview. Purview is relatively new, so I'm going to just run through a quick slide deck and then maybe a little bit of a demo, depending how far we get here. So why did we make Purview? So it was released GA late last year. It's been in preview for a little bit, but long story short, the data landscape's changing. We're in a period of digital transformation, and there's an increasing need for data by all groups of the business, and we see that every day throughout multiple customers. The data we're ingesting is becoming increasingly complex with many different formats and types. When we don't govern our data, there can be a business impact, both in brand and potentially a financial impact if we breach regulations and things like that. So we see that business groups, we need a source of trusted data and governance of that data. So that's generally why it is. It's if anyone's ever had to deal with data governance, you know that what the problems are and how technology can hopefully help aid in that. So data governance is becoming a key and important role inside an organization. What data exists? Where does it come from? Is it accurate? Is it trustworthy? Which source systems are producing that data? Is my data secure? Am I following regulations? And what happens when I breach those regulations? Will my brand be damaged? Will I have to pay financial penalties? So this chief data officer or data stewards or anything like that is becoming an increasingly important person in an organization and an important role. And we're seeing that across our industries. So what are elements of a successful data governance framework or platform? And our goal is in a successful data governance framework is to empower users to update processes, create new optimizations, create new products, gain insights in their business. But while we empower them, we have to manage this data. We have to overcome silos between business units, harmonize that, increase agility, and comply with all these regulations. So that's where Purview comes in. Right? Purview is Microsoft's unified data and governance solution that helps manage and govern your data. It sets those foundations for effective data governance. One of the biggest things that Purview does is creates and we're going to get into it a little bit here, but it's one of the biggest things is a common data vocabulary across your environment. So that's on-prem, in the cloud, at the edge. It's that common platform across all your enterprise. It allows you to catalog data, add metadata to your data so that it's all in one place. You get that singular view for everyone to see. So it's cloud native. It's a PaaS service. You can deploy it like any other Azure resource. You pay per hour, same kind of thing as any other Azure resource for what you need. So if you're used to anything in Azure Purview, you'll feel right at home with Purview. What's really cool about Purview is it helps build that data catalog for you. So building a data catalog is hard. You don't want to have to manually doing it. Think about how many systems and data sources you have today. Doing that manually is going to become it just can't scale. So Purview automates the discovery of that data for you. It finds data assets. It classifies information for you, and that's on-premise in multiple clouds. So Amazon, Google, Microsoft, or some SaaS providers. And what's cool is it automatically classifies can service be paused? Not Purview. Purview can't be paused. It's kind of always on. Good question though. We get that question a lot, especially when people are starting it. You kind of have to delete it and then redeploy if you want. So good question though. But well, yeah, what's cool is that Purview automatically classifies data found in schemas with over 200 data classification rules. So things like credit cards, social insurance numbers. So that's more PII data, but even things like phone numbers, first name, country codes, states. So there's over 200 of these rules, and you can have custom ones too, just using simple regular expression. And what's cool is that those data classifications can follow through the lineage of that data too. We can find out what our reports and data products come from. So things, if you have a Power BI report, which source system contributed to that Power BI report, but how did it get there? What transformations did it go through? Did you have an ADF pipeline that converted, or a data flow that converted it? And when's the last time it was refreshed, or things like that? So data lineage is a really cool and really important part of Purview. So what's really cool, like I said before, is that common data model, or common data vocabulary, where you can harmonize the terms of which your users are using for data that's across your environment. And what's cool is you can search for that data. So you can empower users or customers of your data products to go, I'm looking for this kind of data. Where can I get it? And which source systems is it in? Or which certified data sources that the organization is certified as trusted can I open? And do I have access to? And how do I get access to those things? So there's things around automating authorizations and stuff like that too, that works hand in hand with Azure AD and Purview. So really cool stuff there. And we'll go into just a quick little demo of that too. We don't have too much time, but enough to do a quick little demo. Purview does have some data insight capabilities. It's still in preview, so I'll be honest, it's okay for now, but it's getting better as it progresses in its development. Kind of gives you like a 10,000 foot level view of what's in your environment, what kinds of data in your environment, like graphs of how much PI data you have, or how much SQL do you have versus how much Parquet files you have, things like that. So there's some analytics which is really good, and it's growing and it's getting better every day. So this is just a visual of all of the different parts of Purview. So data catalog, data insights. There's now another one in Purview called data policy. So it's some of the policies that you can put on data sources and things like that. Still very early in preview, but looks pretty cool. And then how do you connect to it, and how do you showing on the right how you connect to it, and how to import metadata into it. An important distinction with the Purview is it doesn't actually import data, right? It's only importing metadata about the data. So there's no all your data is still safe in its source. All this is doing is reading the metadata and schema information about the data sources.
Hey, Greg.
Yeah.
One quick question. Can you go back? Yep. So do you see the arrows between Azure Purview and Synapse and Power BI? Is there a reason why it's bidirectional?
Yeah,
is it?
I think the point is that you can load the output. There's open APIs on the data that's in Purview. So here I can do. I love this feature in Teams. You can just like have a laser pointer. But you can get this data out of Purview and use it for other things inside. You can build your own reports on the data that's inside Purview, so on the data that you've extracted and things like that. So that's my guess. But typically you're pulling in data from these sources and stuff. And I think the big thing here is the data that Purview can scan. There's over 35 connectors, and it's growing every day. So I think my guess is just that you can bring in data to other sources from Purview once you've scanned it in. So you can combine that data with other stuff.
Yeah, one follow-up question. In the previous mentioned that you can classify data in Azure Purview. Does that mean we can push the classification from Purview into, let's say, SQL Server?
Not SQL Server, but there are classifications. Here, let me just, maybe I'll share my other screen here real quick, or maybe when we go through the demo, I'll make sure to bring it up. And if I forget, that's okay too. Yeah. The classifications probably not. It all depends on if you want to use some of the open APIs to bring that across. What does come across though is sensitivity labels, and so sensitivity labels like, is it restricted? Is it PII data? Is it unrestricted? So those, and we've adopted them here at Microsoft, is those, we're building those into all of our tools. So Office 365, Power BI, Outlook. So if you were to build a report with a sensitivity label of data that had a sensitivity label of restricted, and you tried to email it, you wouldn't be able to do that. So if you attach that through Outlook, it would recognize that there's that sensitivity label, and then you wouldn't be able to do that. So that's really, really exciting. But the classification's more, it's probably something custom if you wanted to do that. That's not a complete list. Good question, Corey. There's like 35 connectors. MySQL works, Postgres works, SQL MI absolutely works. So when we open the workspace, we can look at that really quick. So here, I'll turn that off. So this is the Purview data map. What's really cool is it shows you all your source systems, and you can group them in different categories or regions depending on what your organization feels like that is. So they're grouping things called collections, and so it's really small on my screen because I'm in presenter mode, but this is typically you do by geo region or department or business unit. So there's lots of different ways to do that. So Azure Purview map, this is where you would add, and we'll go through a really quick example. You would add a data source and set up a scan so that it would just continually scan this information. And then when it can automatically pick up again 200 plus built-in classifiers, and those classifiers can have sensitivities, so things like PI data and stuff like that. So really cool way to visualize all the data sources in your environment. And this is kind of the view for searching. So another big part of Purview is the data catalog, and that is for being able to browse, search, giving recommendations, and figuring out lineage from a given data set or a report or a file or something like that. So we'll go through a really quick example. I've got one quick one here. And then here's those analytics. So those bird's eye view of your data that's inside your organization. And this is all built on metadata, it's not like it's querying your data right when it's doing this, it's just the metadata that's within Purview. And then, yeah, Purview is kind of the goal for us and Microsoft. And I'll be honest, it's one of the products that's getting one of the heavier amount of development and resources and investment by Microsoft. It will be in the middle of all data going forward. Like if there's a way to connect more data systems to it, it will go that way. So for example, like we have some customers that are pulling in SAP data, and we're actively getting feedback because to filter in that they maybe don't want to bring all your SAP data and stuff like that. So just an example, like we have tons of across Canada and North America for sure, and the world are putting in feedback for Purview. That's for sure. It's still a relatively new product, but definitely something that was missing in our lineup. So I have a fake company called Contoso Pizza. They make pizza for Canadian for Canada. So it's just a pizza delivery shop or pizza place that has deliveries and stuff like that. So that's a data catalog. It's the first view. You can see we can search. We can search what does pizza place have? They probably have orders, so they can search for orders. And what's cool is in the data catalog we can see that these are suggestions. Not that I've ever typed in, but things that an AI search thing is returning. So orders, and then you can actually see the assets as well. So we can see that there's a table somewhere that has orders. Okay, there's a Parquet file, and then there's this CSV file that's somewhere on some data lake. But if I just click orders, I can see it brings up kind of the search results. So I can further filter that with reports or files, or maybe there's a pipeline in ADF that's called like process orders or something like that. I can filter them by collections. If I had any classifications with that name, I could pick the classifications. And then on the right, we show the results of actually where the data is. So we have this SQL table. I can click it. I can see into the table. I can see who's the contact for this if I had any contacts listed, which this was a bad example because I don't have any contacts listed for it. But I can see the schema, which again, this is a bad example because I didn't actually do anything with it. But yeah, there's just showing the search. And then you can see the hierarchy. So you can see that it's a table within a schema, within a database, within a SQL server, and then the collection path as well. There's no glossary terms on this one either. So again, empowering users to search for data. Like if you want to, maybe I'll pick a better example here. So here, this is earnings, and it has a sensitivity label, confidential Microsoft extended. So if I click into it, we'll see why it has that. Actually, I guess maybe when I scanned it, it picked that one, and you can then edit the sensitivity of that. So any data that's pulled from this file in any report, the lineage will capture that and then when you build the report, it will also have that same sensitivity label. And if you were to go to send an email, that email would also have that sensitivity label. So it kind of goes through all the Microsoft products, and there's more support for those sensitivity labels growing, just because that data requirement is growing and stuff like that. If we jump in the data map, so this is where when you first run into Purview, there's nothing in it. This is the first thing you do. You have a root collection. You can create another collection underneath it, and then you can register sources. So if we were to register a new source, these are where, Corey, you can see all the sources that up to 35. I think there's more now. 35 is one, but there's some preview ones. You'll notice we support Amazon, we support Google, and I think maybe not IBM yet. Maybe that one's still in preview, but SAP and Snowflake and stuff like that. Oracle for sure. And there's MySQL down there. So if you want to add another source, it's as simple as, actually, you know what? I'm just going to delete this one. And then we'll just register that again. So say we have an ADLS or a data lake, ADLS Gen 2, we can click it, we can name it. So let's call this data lake. We select the storage account name, which I already did. I already set up the permissions, so everything should be there. And I'm going to put it under this collection. You can create new collections, but this is where you store it there. So we click register. And what it does is it registers a new data source underneath this collection of data. And then let's start a new scan. So the scan, what it does is the Purview agent, for all intents and purposes, will go out and go scan that thing. It'll run, for anyone who's familiar with how Azure authentication works, it'll run as the Purview MSI. So you have to grant access to wherever you're scanning so Purview can access that. On-prem, if you have an on-prem system, you can use a shared integration, self-hosted integration runtime that is deployed in your own environment. So either in a private VNet in Azure that can contact on-prem stuff, or even a machine on-prem that can locally talk to those systems. So think of an on-prem SQL Server, something like that. So I already configured this in theory. We should get a green check mark. So connection successful. If it didn't work, it'd be red. So we'll just click continue. We're just going to do a single scan. So let's do everything under this. So let's do everything. Let's go continue. You can build out new scan rule sets. So that's where you can build out custom classifications and custom rules. Maybe you don't want to pull in Parquet files. You only want to pull in CSV files. Those are the kind of rules that you can specify here. So if we click here, actually, you know what? Let's not do that. Let's just, you can filter all the things you're going to pull in. That's maybe at the file level, or maybe you want to do by date, or you want to filter them even more. We're just going to pick the default because we just want to pick up everything. You can set recurring. Maybe you want to scan this once a month. Maybe you want to scan this every day. Maybe there's new schemas coming in all the time, and then things like that. But we're just doing once because I don't want this running all the time. And then we're going to save and run. So it's going to start scanning. So while the scan goes, I'll answer the question that Corey's asking. So lineage is magic. It is amazing. So what happens is it's actually happening in the metadata level. So when you have to add all the sources of data and an ADF to bring that data in, and then when you publish a report in Power BI, you can scan that Power BI service, and that metadata all will come in, and you can see the lineage. So that's baked into the service. So it's super, super cool. I'll be honest, it doesn't support all the connectors yet, but it's growing. So for example, like if you're a heavy user of Databricks, if you're building ETL process in Databricks and you're pulling in from the data lake and saving into a SQL pool, or just back into the data lake, that's not being captured right now in the metadata. Support is coming. It's on the roadmap. So there's those kind of things. So things that are supported is our ADF. So if you have a data flow that modifies or does a copy activity, then that will show up. So you have your data sources, you have the pipeline, you have your other, your sinks or the data sources it's copying to, and then maybe you have a Power BI report viewing it, and then you can see that lineage. I don't actually have a report on this example here, but the screenshots in the slide kind of show what that kind of looked like, which is really, really cool, because then when you publish that, you can see how it got there. And when you search it, users can even go, how, Bob, my friend, made this thing. Which data did he access, and which data can I trust, and those kind of things. Private endpoints are supported. So private endpoints are more for inbound to the resource. So if you're talking to a SQL database that has a private endpoint, you would then use a self-hosted integration runtime that's deployed within the VNet to talk to the private endpoints of the resources that are there. So that's where you would end up using self-hosted integration runtime. What's annoying is that self-hosted integration runtime, I'm going to call it the integration runtime for now. It's not the same as the Data Factory one or the Synapse one, so it's yet another integration runtime, which is a bummer. So then if you have already things deployed, you have to deploy yet another integration runtime. There is plans on merging all these things, but not an ETA on that yet. Why are these two? That's weird. Could be that you deployed the Purview before, when it was in preview. When it was in preview, things were free. A lot of things are free, and now that it's in GA, maybe it's just a separate resource. So I'm not sure. That's my guess. I haven't. Yeah, I'm not sure. In my subscription, it just shows the one. Yep, no other idea for you there. And yeah, Databricks ETL. A lot of people are asking for that in Lineage, so that it works, because everyone's using Databricks or even Synapse Spark to do ETL. And without that Lineage, you're kind of missing a key piece. Okay, only kind of a bit over time. I'll just go really, really quick. So we can browse assets. So let's click here. Let's click. Actually, you know what? Let's get the results of this scan. So we click here, we can see the scan name. Oh, it's still in progress. So it's discovering assets as it goes. We can click here. Yeah, it's still going. So let's pick another source that has actual assets, and then we can see. So you can see this, it's discovered assets, it's done. See all that there. And then it'll show up in the data catalog. So now you can search for those things. Again, search for the assets it found, and you can start editing and adding metadata to it. So if I click edit, I'm going to say you can start adding information about that system or that source system. You can start adding classifications at the asset level. You can start adding glossary terms. So glossary terms, again, is a really important. Here's where I have glossary terms. So this is where you can manage glossary terms globally across your organization. So you can build new templates. The system default is just templates for the glossary itself. And then you can put it in draft and then prove it. And there's all these different ways to manage. You can manage these terms across the assets itself. Maybe this term has acronyms. And then so that it just helps with the search and helps for the discovery of data. And then you can add who owns this. So if I go back to a glossary term I've created, I think I did this one. No, I lied. Well, let's put me as the owner of this, so I can search this. Just search Azure AD. And then I can add, any other metadata about me. Is there any acronyms? So let's, maybe CN's used for customer name or something like that. Any description of that, and then you can save it. And what's cool is if you have multiple data sources with the same term, but maybe named differently, you can apply this glossary term to that asset. So if we go back to customers, I think I already did this in here. If we go schema, a name, so there's a glossary term for this called customer name. And so if you click the customer name, you can see all the things that are related to it and things like that. So yeah, I think that's all I really wanted to say about that. Yeah, cool. What else do I see? I think I showed you about the schema. Here's where you can set. So this was what was found automatically by the scan. And then you can put in classifications. If it didn't find one, you can add more classifications. You can do custom ones. So maybe a person's name and something else if it was something else. I'm not sure what it would be, but that's what it'd be. And then you can add descriptions about it too. So if there's something metadata-y about the data itself, you can add it there. What's really cool is you can pull all this information with the Purview API and then do more things with it. So anything with metadata or any metadata processing that you want to do, you can leverage this stuff, and it just gives you a tool to do it.